Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else in between, welcome to this new episode of Trini Trent TV, our special series here on the channel called Maco Soca, in which we take a deep dive into soca and even a bit of calypso music to get a deeper understanding of all the different aspects of Trinidad and Tobago music culture. You know, I told you before that we're going to be taking a deep dive into the catalog of Destra Garcia, who some people might actually call the soca queen. And in order to do this, I decided to bring on a good friend of mine, somebody who's a producer, a writer, an amazing musician. She's also an activist, an African internationalist. Kenna. But Gail have many hats, many crowns, many titles. She also happens to be a major Destra fan. And she's the only person who I know who could go wrong for wrong with me, toe to toe, on the topic of Destra. I am talking about none other than my good friend, Miss Elikya Ngoma. Elikya, Gail, big up yourself.
Yo, Sac Passe. What's up, Trent? What's up, everybody out there? I'm excited. I got my notebook ready. We're good to go.
I am so excited. I don't think y'all understand. I am so excited. This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this on the channel. You know, I had the Trini Trent Radio podcast with my friend Terry, and that was an audio experience. But this is the first time that we're ever doing anything with video. So the number of wires and cords and light and mic and interface and da, I have stick all over the place, you know. It looking simple, but this is a real production. Elikya,
We put in the work. We put in the work.
the work.
Okay. Not just for setup either, just for the kind of discussion we want to have. We put in the
This
work.
has been a lot of research. We have spent months of listening to all of Destra's studio albums and songs, singles, rhythms, all kind of things that she did, watching music videos, getting on the phone, spending 5-6 hours in a conversation. Listen, this is our passion project and we ain't even getting paid. We ain't even getting paid.
Listen, we're spending money, okay? Not even not getting paid. We're spending
We
money.
spent money on the things. You understand? On the things. But we're not going to tell them how much money we spend in Elikya.
No. They don't need to
They don't need to know.
We spent $1.
I don't want nobody jumping through my window, holding me up on the road and
$1.
Yeah, $1, Gil. 25 cents.
We spent $1 each.
That's it. And we split the dollar actually. We split the dollar. She cut it in half and she sent down her half of the dollar. And it's not even a US dollar, it's a Trinidad dollar.
Not even USD.
It's not USD.
Thank you. I was going to say Haitian.
Listen, whichever one had a lower exchange rate, that's the one that we're talking about.
Listen, that's the one.
All right, that's enough small talk. We're relaxing, we're having fun. Anyway,
Yes.
Let me get into the action. So the first album in Destra's catalog is Red, White, Black. That actually introduces us to Destra as an albums artist. It actually introduces us to Destra as, an artist who can compose a soca record. But the interesting thing about this is that this is actually not Destra's debut album as it was originally intended. When she first wanted to come out, she wanted to be an R&B gospel type artist. And Elikya is the one who actually have all the 2 cents on that now. Elikya, let me hear what you had to say, huh?
Right. So in watching interviews, I came across the fact that Destra originally wanted to be an R&B and or a gospel artist. To the point where she recorded a full R&B album. It was being shopped around. I don't know what happened where one thing didn't connect with the other, but turns out that she had to take another direction and come into soca. So when you start listening to Red, White, Black, the first song is gospel, which we'll talk about shortly. The next 2 songs are R&B. Those are 2 of the songs that was recorded for her actual first album, although it's not accessible to us.
You know what's interesting? When I was first listening to this album last year, because last year was the first time I actually sat down and listened to the whole album from front to back. And what caught my ear and what I thought was interesting is that I could not tell that was Destra on those 2 songs.
Right.
What are the name of the 2 songs?
Right.
Is Ain't Down With That.
And Can We Make It Last?
And Can We Make It Last?
Down with that.
Okay, I shake up my whole table. Ignore that earlier. Yeah. I really and truly could not tell that was Destra on both those tracks. I wasn't sure. And I remember thinking to myself, this sounds something like an Escape type of record. Because she has like little tonal moments in her voice when she's singing that reminds me so much of Candy. It's just kind of at Ogom. Destra girl, if you're watching this, do not get vexed with me. I'm just trying to describe it to the people.
Like a glotto kind of thing.
I call it the nasal drip. In a way, it's Ogom, Destra. And not insulted you. It have a little moment there, the vocal. It is get a little nasal drippy now. A little phlegmy. I just want to, go up to Destra and rub a little Vicks on the throat and chest. And hope she man to beat him up, because I'm not trying to touch up the woman. I'm just trying to give she a little Vicks now. But I just find sometimes it gets a little nasally. It goes into a place when she's singing. But when I was listening to the records, that was what was coming out to me. I was hearing a lot of that Candy. I was hearing a lot of that. It was giving me an escape type of vibe. Even the way the music was put together reminds me of how Jermaine Dupri did a lot of escapes work back in the 90s. So I was getting that type of energy from the record.
I think it's in Ain't Down With That when you pointed it out to me, I could tell that it was Destra only because I've listened to so much of her catalog and I understand her singing so well. And even the point that you're, the nasality that you're talking about sometimes, that I could hear that it was her. But otherwise, I would not have been able to tell at all. And then just one more thing to say about that. I'm kind of glad that it didn't happen. I know it might sound hard. Not only because I feel like she belongs in soca, where obviously her life would show that's the case in her career, but I just wonder if 2003, if these songs Can We Make It Last and Ain't Down With That came out, right? And let's say she did get signed to a label over here in the US, and those songs were working, but then when it comes to her having an interview, people realize, like, hold on, there's a whole Jamaican lady, because they're not gonna know Trinidadian, Grenadian. It's a Jamaican. If you're from the Caribbean, you're Jamaican, okay? So they're gonna be like, there's a whole Jamaican lady singing R&B.
That's right, that's a ball.
So how would that have been received? Would that have been received well? Would it have lasted beyond that?
I actually have 2 points on that. One, that 2 of them could actually work in Destra's favor. One, when many Trinidadian people touch down in America, the first thing they just lose is the accent. That everybody not like me, where I was living there the whole time talking like I fresh off the boat. But not everybody have that type of energy. Some people, the minute they book their flight and they say they're touching down JFK, they pick up a whole Brooklyn accent. Don't ask me where it come from, but they sounding like Mary J. Blige circa 1994. Trinidadian people, if it's one thing Trinidadians could do, is blend into our crowd. That's why some people from the other islands, it's called we tricky Dadians now. Trinidadian people could adapt and make their way in anything. Another thing that kind of would have worked in her favor, even if she didn't lose the accent, even if she had like a blend or she just kept her full accent, is the fact that, well, it depends on which accent, because no shade to Destra, but Destra have her Lavantil, regular people accent, and every once in a while she have like this little convent type of accent that has come on. A little convent, a little prestige school accent. I don't know where it has come from. Maybe that's just her TV voice, her radio voice. I don't know, but it has come on. But the thing about it is that early in the 2000s, we had that wave of reggae fusion coming back into American music. That tends to happen like every 10 years or so. So she would have been, if this was to happen, let's say around 2002, 2003, she would have been coming in right as that was really picking up speed, right? With the Sean Pauls, the Elephant Mans, Lumi D, Nina Sky. She would have been like a pre-Rihanna type of energy. So she would have actually fit in with the wave. The only awkward thing is that she would have been the only Trinidadian who was really making a big impression during that wave if the songs took off and was successful. Because what we had was most of the touchstone for that tended to be Jamaica, I would say a little Dominican Republic, a little Puerto Rican, because you were moving between dancehall, reggae, reggaeton. Reggaeton technically is dancehall, but we wouldn't get into that. We have all these different things, all these different things coming together. at the same time. And she would have been the only one on the outside. And unlike other artists who were reggae fusion or making a fusion of Caribbean music sounds with American pop, she would have been doing straight up American R&B. So that's where things could have gotten a little, a little rocky. But then I think about a person like Heather Headley, and she had a great moment in music as a Trinidadian woman.
Yes.
I love Heather Headley. Oh, yeah. I love Heather Headley.
Oh, that's my girl.
I'm a girl.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is.
I don't remember how she sounds when she speaks, though.
When she speaks, it depends. Most of the time, you get like an American accent. You get like a...
Okay.
Well, is it American? Yeah, and like an American type accent. You get a foreign accent. You really get like that strong Trinidadian. But there are certain words that you still hear it coming through. And then you're like, oh yeah, there's my Trinidadian sister. But, she's very proud of her culture. She's not ashamed of her culture or anything like that. So it is what it is. But what's interesting about Destra's debut, Red, White, Black, is that it is the first of the bookends. And the bookends means that, it's the first album that introduces us to Destra. And then, of course, comes to her final album, which she released this year in 2023, which is Unchained. And, if she came in doing this album and opened it up with gospel and R&B, giving us a glimpse of who she would have been had gospel and R&B been her main focus, and she really pushed through and released a full album of that content to the world, my question that then comes to mind is, if she's about to leave soca, because she says Unchained is her final full soca album for now. She said that's going to be her final album. Not that she's not going to make soca music anymore. She says she'll still make the party music, the fete music. But she says that that's going to be her her final full-length soca record. So my question is, now that she has put that final record out, is she going to go back? Is this going to be a full circle moment where she goes back to the gospel and R&B that she wanted to make? That's my question to you, Elikya. What do you think?
I think it can be that. I think it can be definitely a gospel album fully for reasons of, beliefs, Christianity, spirituality, religion, etc. I also think it would make sense for her, or it seems like she would do this, make an album that is different genres altogether. And I say that because as we go through her catalog, you see where she has jumped in and out of different sounds, still mostly soca, but whether it's integrating other genres from the Caribbean, like zouk or reggaeton, etc., or, going into EDM, going into Afrobeats. So she clearly likes different types of music genres. So it could be either or. It could be a gospel one and then one that's a mix of just different genres, period. I don't necessarily know that there's a need for an R&B album.
Well, only she could answer that question. She would know what she's feeling. Maybe she feels that that's the side of her that she's ready to express. I don't know. But before we get deep into the weeds, a Red, White, Black, I really want us to take a moment to talk about Tremble It. Because that was Destra's debut hit. That is the song that introduced that introduced Destra to the world. Elikya has some thoughts that I think she wants to share.
Yes. Oh, definitely. First, it's not easy for an artist for your debut song to also be a hit. Sometimes artists have 3 or 4 songs before they get a hit, so that's commendable. But, Tremble It was by Roy Cape featuring Destra Garcia. That's how it's listed. From Tremble It to like Choo Choo on her first album, you hear the line, you see the line, you feel the line, and you can tell that all the things that she learned in Roy Cape, especially using Tremble It as an example of that, is reflected in when she would go on to make her own music and a song like Choo Choo in particular. It's just extraordinary, just great composition, great energy, and vocals. It's like you can tell that this is someone who can sing, but then the energy, it's high. It's just a really exemplary song of what soca music can be. And then you see that reflected in Choo Choo as well, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we get there.
But I think one thing that we have to mention here is that Destra is not like Destra's just a product of Roy Cape or her experiences in that part of her life. Because Destra comes from a musically grounded family. And I think they had a big influence in how she was able to listen to music and interpret music and move with music. And then, of course, her time
Yeah.
as, a junior Calypso monarch when she was in school. She did an interview with, I think it was called I Belong to the House of Music on YouTube. I saw that video. And Cam is Destra and she blonde wig. That's all I remember. And Destra and the people in them backyard with this bright blonde wig. But anyway, well, she sit down there doing the interview and she was talking about how she learned how to deliver a song when on stage, singing those Calypso songs. And her teacher, I think the name of the teacher was Miss Roach. Big up Miss Roach. She had, a lot of guidance, people teaching her how to move on stage, how to hold a microphone, how to sing, how to deliver a song. And that energy really does come through on the record. You really hear a lot of how Destra was able to bring those early experiences in Calypso into soca. And that's something I noticed. A lot of artists who have that soca ground, that Calypso grounding, when they come into to soca, they come in with that. They understand how to use inflections and melodies and rhythm. They have they know when to pause, when to go. They know how to direct a crowd. They know how to just position themselves, even if you're on a rhythm, and you're in a shared instrumental space. What you're doing in that time is that you're still finding a way to deliver a song with a punch to really help you stand out. And I also think another thing that really I thought of, and Elikya and I spoke about this at length when we were preparing the show, is that Destra had some of those early influences, some other artists in the business. I think about, in this particular song, Denise Belfon. Because those little points where she's like, tremble it and raise it up, tremble it and down, raise it up, raise it up. In those moments, you could hear the Denise Belfon coming through. And I think Denise was actually part of the Roy K camp at one point as well. And I hear another woman as well. I hear in that pre-chorus, that, let me see you rock, let me see you wave your flag. I hear, I'm not trying to sing all them. My soprano friend is not out today. But as Whitney Houston would say. But what I would say is that, when she was doing those little moments, I hear those tonal similarities to like a Sinel Dempster. Who had that that song, The River. The river, the river,
Yes.
the river, the river, the river, come washing back if you want. That is a song.
Yes.
There are some people born after the year 2000 in Elikya, they probably never hear that song a day in their life. And I was on the road for that song.
That song takes the melody of "Oh When the Saints Go Marching In," and I think Sinel took it where it needed to go.
I think she did. When you listen to that record, you could hear how Destra and Sinel, they kind of approach different parts of the melody and the structure of the music in a very similar way.
I wanted to go back to when you said, she learned how to, work a stage. You can see that in very early performances, where you're looking at a new artist who's probably been on stage for what, a year, 2 years, 3 years, but knows the stage. You know what I mean? That training and development already took place before the time you are seeing her. Within her first year or early performances, she looks like someone who has been on stage for maybe 5 years, 10 years. So I think that's definitely incredible. And what you said about people who perform in soca but are very rooted in Calypso and how they move an audience and how they capture attention. I think it goes back to, what a Calypsonian is. Anyway, the role of a Calypsonian, which is like the storyteller, the person who gives the news. It could be an artist, musician, of course, a singer, a performer. And even that ties to when you look at what is called griot in certain African cultures. Calypsonians are griots. They are who you get your daily news from. They entertain you through story and drama, or it can be a bit comedic. It can be however it needs to be. And a lot of it is done through music. And so if a griot is standing right here and then there's a crowd of people over there, you have to be able to capture their attention and you have to hold their attention. And, it's not so much like when a band is with you, you have all these musicians and stuff like that. It's the griot. You may have one or two other, however that's done. But a lot of the focus is on the person and what they are saying and what they're singing and the message that's being conveyed and the feeling they want to send to you. So Calypsonians are that, And so to bring that into soca, I think that just like stamps the point you're making about who excels the most at, when they're making soca.
And that's something to pay attention to in a lot of Destra's early performances, because in a lot of those early performances, even to this day, but especially when you look back at the beginning of her career, she was on stage by
Yeah.
herself. The band is in the background. Destra is in the foreground by
Yeah.
herself. And she is directing an entire audience, this new young artist. In many cases, some people who have never heard of her, they only know that one song. And she's in an era with like Onika Bostic, Faye and Lyons. That's her class. So they do, at this point, you may not even be able to tell the voices apart completely yet because he's a new artist. And she's out there by herself directing the crowd with this force. And she really was a force of nature, still to this day. But just thinking about this young, because back then, skinny mini little girl who very bright and young and bright-eyed. And when she gets on stage, transforms into this great performer. I think that it really is tied into that Calypso experience, because you need to know how to engage and keep a crowd engaged in order for you to deliver that level of performance. Now, Red, White, and Black, as we get into the album now, the album itself is a strong record for a debut artist. In my opinion, I think it's a strong record. But it has issues, and it's what we spoke about very early on in this conversation. If you start a record with gospel and R&B, and then you pivot suddenly into soca, which I think the first soca track on the record is Whe You Want. So you go from singing gospel and R&B, and then you pivot directly into that. It feels disjointed. Like, gospel and R&B, it informs a lot of Destra's singing. You hear it in so much of what she does, as well as American pop, which has its foundations in gospel and R&B music, a lot of it. But the thing about this album, and with soca, gospel, R&B in general, is that the conversation between R&B, gospel, and pop feels more in an American setting. It feels more intimate. So you can have a gospel R&B opening, and then you can move into that. You could move into pop, or you could move into more R&B. You could even move into hip hop. You could find a way to connect the dots, because it's all part of that African American musical space, that African American experience. And even though gospel has a connection to a lot of what we see here in the Caribbean, it has a connection. There's our own way of connecting through religion and spirituality in the music. And I think of somebody brilliant like David Rudder, who has managed to connect the sounds of the Baptist faith to what we hear in soca. I also think of Super Blue, who has also done that, soca Baptist. When you hear those connections, it feels genuine. It feels like a flow. So he could give you a soca Baptist and then move into a more party type soca record. And it feels like it's having an intimate dance. It feels like these two genres belong in the same space. But then when you go from American gospel and R&B music, you go from like a straight up Mahalia Jackson type record into an escape type record. And then you go into Whe You Want, which sits more in definitely like soca space. It feels disjointed because it doesn't flow. It's not the same type of spiritual music that you're connecting. It's not the same type of the Black experience, that same space. They exist, not even parallel. They feel like they're in two different universes. So as a result, I feel like those opening tracks almost feel tacked on to the record. Like she had them from the album. She didn't want to waste them on what would have been her R&B album. And she said, okay, let me just stick these two songs here. It didn't really feel like it had a natural flow between the records.
I agree. I mean, the gospel, I kind of understand it because I understand how people can think if you consider yourself religious or spiritual, or especially if you're Christian in particular. You're talking about gospel, right? So it could be a need to prove to yourself or to others or to God that, even though you're doing music of the world now, you're making secular music, that you have not left God and that God has not left you. And so you're not, degenerate, you're not reprobate, you're not wicked, you're not any of these things. So it's like to prove that this is still my belief, this is still who I am at my core. I can see why the gospel would go. I would not have had it at the beginning of the album unless she sees it as like setting, the place, I would probably have it at the end of the album and begin the album on Whe You Want, because the first song of any album is important, because you have to assume that the first song is what will let people know that they will continue listening to the next few songs. So if you have a soca album and your first song is gospel, okay, maybe, but then your next two songs are R&B, and I'm here to listen to soca. Like, if I want to listen to R&B, but I want you for soca, and then you putting it in front of the soca songs on your soca album as a soca artist. Okay, all right, we on this. Okay, good. So I actually feel like the R&B songs don't need to be there at all. At the point that you, your family, your team, everybody said, you know what, soca is what it is. That's what it got to be. That's it.
But I have an idea here, and I want to give an example. And you see how you said put the gospel song at the end of the album, and how that could have made more sense? Even if she
Yeah.
was coming in from, thinking about music and constructing music from more of like a American pop, R&B, an African American mindset, like, okay, how am I going to structure this record? She could have, just as you said, put the song at the end, and I would have found a way to ground it into more of what, into a Trinidad music space. Connect it, make it, put some type of rhythm, some type of movement there, like that African procession timing, that chump, 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 chump. Put something in the music to make it feel like it ties in. Because, if you listen to a lot of like American pop and American R&B, it's not uncommon for Black pop or Black R&B artists in America to put those gospel records on, even if you singing like a whole happy-go-lucky record and you singing about, not saying that gospel can't be happy-go-lucky, but let's say, you're singing disco, or you're singing dance music, or you're singing any type of music, pop, hip hop, whatever, you could find a way to blend it. Because I think of like Donna Summer had been doing that throughout much of the second half of her career. I think about Mariah Carey today, all you know that's McGill. Mariah always has one of those gospel records on the end of her album. And I also think of Denise Williams, because she did an interview with the Questlove Supreme podcast. And she spoke about, her habit of putting those gospel records on her albums. And she says, if I'm gonna, this is not a quote, I'm paraphrasing, but she says, if I'm going to do 14 songs or 10 songs for the world, I could still save one song for him. And that's how she framed it. And it makes sense though, because in music blends together. But in a soca space, if I am whining and jamming in one part of my album, or I groove in, or I wave in my rag, it sounds odd if we then come across and I hear Mahalia Jackson wailing at me on the other side of the record. Like 1 minute I whining down by the river, and the next minute you want to take me to the creek and kneel by the rock. Oh God, okay, that went a little far. But I have to paint the picture. But I just saying, it feels like it does not gel.
But I agree with you also that it's a good debut album in soca. And I would also add that it's not necessarily a solid soca album, but it's a solid album to debut in soca with, for the reasons we just said.
So now what I want to do is talk about some of the key songs on Destra's Red, White, Black debut album. I really want to get into these key songs. This is where we could really start getting into the music a lot more. Songs that we love, our favorite records, and we're going to tell you all why we love them, right? Because we want people, when they interface with this album, to have an idea of the magic that is in this record, especially if you've never listened to soca. This is, we're giving all that little context here now. I'm very excited. And the song that I have as one of my key songs, first up, this is in no particular order, but it's a classic by Destra. And that is Whe You Want.
Okay.
Oh, I love Whe You Want. Whe You Want is one of those records that when you hear it, it has this, it's so beautiful. It's tender. And what catches you is that you hear this production. The beat and the percussion is actually kind of punchy. It's very forward. But instead of going with that and giving it like a bam, 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 she is very gentle. It's like a soft breeze blowing on you. And to me, it reminds me so much of that tenderness and the flirtation of Trinidadian people. because even
Okay.
the way she's like, "What you want, darling?" It's like, you start to blush one time. She started already blush. It feels like somebody hugging up on you in the kitchen and they're blowing in your ear. They're telling you some sweet talk. I like sweet talk, earlier. I like food and I like sweet talk. Just in case you're wondering. But anyway, I really like the way that, Destra delivers this record. I love the harmonies. I feel like the strength in the vocal comes in the harmonies. As the lead vocal is so soft, is so gentle. It feels like somebody touching the side of your face, rubbing your earlobe, rubbing your back. But then you get to the harmonies, and that's where she's really doing some really great stuff, because Destra's backgrounds are incredible. Throughout her career,
Oh, yeah.
her backgrounds are
Oh, yes.
incredible. If you listen to how she does the harmonies on this record, she has the what you want, what you want, what you want, what you want with me. I'm not trying to sing it all, I'm just trying to, I hope in the right key. And then she comes in with that top harmony and it's a what you want, what you want, what you want, what you want with me. And when you put those two together, it just blends. It just creates this really, like, I don't know, it lifts you up and you want to sing along to it. And I also love
Yes.
what I love about this record is that you hear the influence. Like, Destra, you could always hear her influences if you know what to listen for. And I love when you hear that, because you're hearing an artist who has studied. And I love when I listen to Whe You Want and I listen to that lead vocal, it reminds me a lot of Alison Hinds. That is somebody who is considered now in many ways a contemporary to Destra, but she's really, one of the people who came right before Destra, because Alison and they really took off at least in Trinidad around like 96. That was when the Bajan invasion, so-called Bajan invasion, happened. And when she was with Square One. And when you listen to Whe You Want, you hear those Alison influences, the tones and the way she approaches the music. It reminds me a lot of Alison. And I also love the storytelling in Whe You Want, because, she's painting a picture. She's, as soon as you pass the door, it's me that you're looking for. She right by the bar, right by the bar. Those little moments that she's giving you, I feel like she's really painting a picture. It's kind of like Whe You Want is like a soca counterpart to like Brandy's Full Moon. Because when Brandy has full moon, boy, I see as soon as you came walking through the door, you and your friends and them just took over the floor, started doing your thing, and maybe want you, even maybe notice you even more and more, whatever the lyrics are. I was forgetting the people lyrics. I can't remember nobody lyrics. Everybody on this channel probably know that by now.
I don't be knowing lyrics
No.
either.
I should be singing about 10 different words in the car. Every time I sing this song, I'm singing a whole different lyric. But it's like a soca counterpart. Not saying that Destra took this song by copying Brandy, but they seem to be that same type of storytelling, and I love that.
It's interesting to me that we hear this song similarly and also differently, obviously, because of what we're exposed to and, cultures and genres and things like that. I agree with much of what you said about Whe You Want. I think this song has a warmth to it that I love. I love the fact that you use the word tender, and I'm going to come back to the word tender because that's a key word I had as well. But, Whe You Want is an incredible song. When I first heard that song years ago, I don't even know how many years ago, like when I first started listening to Destra, this song felt very familiar. The music felt very, very, very familiar. It always reminded me of a specific song by one of our Haitian artists named Emeline Michel, musically though, because the content of the song is different. The song is called AKIKO. It's an acronym. I still don't know what it stands for, but the message of the song is like, asking for peace and unity and those kinds of things. But the music, and when you listen to AKIKO, it's not compa. It's zouk mixed with some of our, or not just this song, but Emily Michel's artistry in general is often taking Haitian folklore rhythms associated with Haitian voodoo and things like that, and mixing them with other genres where you might have a song that might be compa a little bit with that, or zouk with that. So she is, I don't know if she's exactly considered a Racine artist. Racine means roots. I don't know if we exactly consider her that. But her music is always a mix of these things anyway. So Akaikao, it always feels a bit like soca. It always feels a bit like zouk. It always feels a bit like makossa from Cameroon, Central Africa, that whole Central African uh, genres that are kind of interchangeable in some ways. You have sukus, you have seben, you have makossa, and things like that. And I get all of that in Whe You Want subtly underneath the soca. It's, to me, it's still primarily soca, but like the way the guitars move in that song, the way the bass moves in that song, I get, and even adding things like marimba, which is an instrument that people usually associate or usually use when they want an African vibe, like even though they're not pulling it from a specific country, there's like, oh, something African, marimba, you know? Hearing that in the instrumental, it gives that Central African, you know, those genres I named, makossa, seben, sukus vibe. It has that metronome. We consider it a metronome, but it's also called a tresillo. I don't know how to say that I hope I said that correctly in the Spanish uh, accent. It's a term that Africans from Cuba, what they call Afro-Cubans, developed to identify this rhythm that we've talked about before.
Yes.
Right. So that is a rhythm that has existed long before. Some people even consider it a universal rhythm.
Because you hear that rhythm in soca here a lot. Because I think
Yes.
of Shadows. That, what's the name of that song? Dun, 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 Play the Devil. That's the song. Play the Devil. Long Time No Carnival, I think is the full name, full title. And it's back, 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 back.
Yes. Yeah, you hear it in compa. In compa, they do it on the cymbal. Zouk, they do, but they do it on the rim shot. And Whe You Want does it on the snare.
It does.
On the center of the snare instead of on the rim shot. Whereas other songs, like if you look at Carnival, the snare is more like or something like that, but it's doing that on the snare, and that emphasis on the snare as opposed to like a hi-hat or a rim shot, to me, is what makes it very soca. The way she's singing, the tenderness, to me, it reminds me of a type of vocal I often heard in zouk or hear in zouk when women sing. An example is a song called Jamais te laisser by Leila Chico. It's just this softness, this flexibility, this tenderness. Tenderness is always the word that comes to mind. This sweetness that's with it. And then the way the horns is, to me, So I hope that the people who sat in the room and composed this and produced this don't try to find a flight and come to where I'm at. Okay. To me, I hear a horn section that is more associated with a zouk and makossa. But what's interesting is that zouk has influence of soca in it too. And then makossa, at one point in the 80s, started having an influence of zouk in it. So when I hear a song like Whe You Want, like my brain is like this. And I'm like, dang, if this song was released like 1987 to 1993, Destra would have been everywhere with, or even if it wasn't Destra, if it was somebody else who had this song in those years, they would have been everywhere. They would have been, in Trinidad and Tobago. They would have been in Haiti. They would have been in Guadeloupe, Martinique. They would have been in Paris, France, not for white people, but for the people who are from Guadeloupe that's there, from Martinique that's there, from Haiti that's there, from Cameroon that's there, from the Congo that's there, and other parts, Ivory Coast, etc. And she would have been in Africa. And it's not a reach because in that time period, a lot of artists, even Emily Michelle, Kassav, they were all around these places because they're creating music that all of us could hear and be like, this is from here. So
I do want to point out a couple of things for anybody who may be kind of lost, because this is some great explanation we get in here. This is why I have Elikya. Elikya is awesome. The thing about it is that Elikya is Haitian. And a lot of the music that she might be referencing will be compa, which is a Haitian genre. And then, of course, we have zouk, which is very popular in like Martinique, Guadeloupe. But it also draws a lot from compa and soca here in Trinidad and Tobago. So it kind of like, this is a diaspora experience because it's seeing everything kind of tie in together in this really interesting way. And I do want to add on to something that you said, because I do think that there are some, like, if in white spaces where Destra would have probably, if this song would have come out, especially in the early 90s, where it could have had a big stamp. Because I don't know how this song performed amongst white people when it did come out in the early 2000s. But soca has a very big presence in Germany. And in the early 1990s, like Machel Montano, Ecstatic, they were signed to a German record label. And there was a definite hunger for soca music across Europe. So we never know how this song could have moved. This song could have been one of those songs that just took on a life of its own. But talking about a song with a life of its own, we have to get to my second key song.
Okay.
Boodie.
All right, let's see what you got. Oh, God.
This is my song. This is my song.
Why?
Listen, I love Boodie. Boodie features Kernal Roberts, who's the son of the great, late, amazing Lord Kitchener, who some people actually consider to be the king of Calypso if they don't come from a Sparrow household, because there's always Kitch versus Sparrow, Kitch versus Sparrow, the mighty Sparrow. These are considered the two of the giants of, I would say, from mid 1900s Calypso music. People love Lord Kitchener. And Kernal Roberts he basically wrote this song. I don't know if he wrote it with or for Destra. Definitely know that he took the music and he went off and he wrote the lyrics. If you listen to the album, you actually hear him talking about it. But this record is bold and it's brash and it has an energy to it that I love. I really, really love the record. I love the way that they deliver it. One of my favorite parts of the record is actually that pre-chorus. I think the record actually takes a whole life of its own when it comes to that pre-chorus, because when I first heard the song, I can't lie, I got annoyed. Because I'm like, Boodie.
Okay. Yeah.
It has that kind of
B-O-D-I-E.
It has that, this is I know Americans, sometimes, not all Americans, but some parts of America, when you say a word with a consonant, you don't really say booty, you say booty. But they don't just say it as booty in this song. They spell it as Boodie, B-O-O-D-I-E. And I was like, that is not a word. And it was really stressing me out. But the thing, what I love about your record is when you get past the title and the recurring word, you get into that vocal and how Destra delivers it with such a commanding presence. When once again, that Denise Belfont type of connection. Because we could go even further back than Denise Belfont, because it's not like Denise Belfont was the first commanding woman in Trinidadian music. I mean, we have Calypso Rose. We have Singing Francine. But we have these other great women who have built the foundation. But when you think about how Destra delivers this record, I just love that pre-chorus. Because in the pre-chorus, she says, this is for readiness. Weezy crop that man will harvest. No time for no stupidness. Because why did this serious business? I love how she does that. I just think that Destra really delivers it home. And she's on a track with a man and she's not playing secondary to that man. Pay attention to that. She's not being secondary to that man. He is chasing her. He wants her to give him the booty, but she's not just bending over and saying, okay, come now, daddy, take what you want. No, it's more like, I am the one in charge. Weezy crop that man will harvest. Why your face looking long like droopy? Is that you want sympathy? She taking control of the moment, and it feels like this young artist is delivering this type of record. To me, that's something special. Although Elikya hate the song and don't like it.
I can do without the song, but I'll give you that. This is one of the songs that it has closer to a bigger background vocal that she would kind of move away from as the years go by. But you hear it, and again, the gospel influence, you hear it in Boodie, you hear it in Savage as well. And you even hear like an organ, which is associated with the church and gospel. It doesn't have to be, but when you hear that instrument, that's what you think of. So I'll just give you that, but I can do without Boodie for sure.
What's your next key track?
So my next key track is actually Savage.
Oh.
Not too much to say. Hey.
Listen,
much to say.
If you coming for my Boodie, I coming for your Savage. You understand?
Anyhow, so my next song is Savage. And to me, I don't know what this song did when it came out, but when I was listening to the album as we were preparing for this, I'm like, okay, this is the type of song that you put on your album, not so much because you think it's going to be a hit, which it may have been, I don't know, but to show what you can do. This is a song for the arts and for people who love the art of what is being produced. There's the choir there. Just the way the melody goes, I'm like, this sounds very theatrical. It feels like on stage theater, but also just dramatic overall. Where she's singing hard, she's singing high, which are two words that often describe how Destra sings. Sometimes, and it's magnificent. Sometimes
it's loud.
It's loud. I'll take it with Savage though. I like it in Savage. I think it works. So I don't have too much to say about Savage. So Trent, what's your third key song?
My third key song, because I don't have too much to say about Savage either. All I would say is that she does, one thing I like about Savage is that I get that Machel Montano connection there. Because remember, Destra draws a lot from the people around her. One of the people who really had a big influence on Destra is Machel Montano. Very big influence on her. And that energy that he would bring to the stage, I think she brings it out in a song like Savage. It feels like you're on fire as you're going through the whole song. She's screaming like she's on fire too, but oh God, let me leave Destra alone. She's not screaming. She actually is. She actually is. She actually is singing. She's singing, but it's just so loud, like the whole song. But
no, she actually comes in the song screaming.
Oh yeah.
This is Destra.
See, I tried to brush over that and not go too hard. Destra Gil, block Elikya, don't block me. I'm being a nice one here. Let the record show. Anyway, my third key song is Choo Choo. Yeah. What I love about Choo Choo is that we get this very powerful vocal on a very fast song. But it's not overwhelming the way that I feel Savage is at some points. It's like, no, she is going through the key changes. There are changes in the tempo. There are changes in so many things happening in this song. It's very dynamic. It's not a flat song like how a lot of like rhythm type songs are done today. This is a really serious track. And she sings this right through. Like she punches through. And she even gives you those moments where she plays with her volume. She'll play with, how does she play with different tones and textures in her voice? She will give you a bite sometimes. She'll pull it back sometimes. I think this really shows how Destra is really a strong singer. And what I love about this song is that this song is like 4 minutes plus. This is a serious record. It's like, I have it written down here. 4 minutes and 11 seconds. There's not no short song, which is rare in soca today because a lot of these soca songs, if you get to 2.5 minutes, that's long today because everybody wants a TikTok hit. But the thing about it is, everybody wants the song go viral on the song go viral on TikTok. But the thing about it is, you get 4 minutes plus, and the song has 3 distinct verses. You have 3 different verses. And I like the fact that you have a mock bridge because you have this part, where they slow it down and they bring in the dancehall rhythm. That dun, dun,
I love
dun,
it.
dun, dun, that little moment. And she keeps it soca. She keeps it grounded in a soca space because of how she does the vocal.
Yeah.
And right there, she also flexes the vocal because as the beat is going And the beat kind of pulls this space in the beat now. You get to hear her voice. And she gives you that moment of vibrato that really comes through. You know, it's just
it's incredible.
It's incredible. What's your next key song?
Choo Choo.
Oh, there.
For all of the reasons you said, I think it not only shows her capacity as a singer vocally, but also technically, like you said, in terms of dynamics, but also like articulation. Destra has great diction.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many songs throughout her catalog that's like, wow, this lady has she's a very clear singer. You hear every word she's singing. And on a song like Choo Choo, da 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 da, like those syllables like that, and all of them are clear. You hear everything she's saying.
When you hear it rumble, boy, that's just my chattel. Only juju right up. That is she actually doesn't just breeze over them.
When you hear the rumble, even that, when you hear like that's a lot of people can get tongue tied.
When you hear it rumble, boy, that's just my chattel. Only juju right up, only juju. It's like she's hitting every. Baby, if you're lucky, baby, you are right my side. You see, I'm even stumbling over it. Wow.
Every, and you know that's throughout the song. It's in all the verses that you mentioned, and it's energy. It's fast. It's not a slower song because you could probably hit that kind of thing. It's easier if it's slower, but it's like this. You gotta have energy. You gotta have voice. You gotta respect the note, and then you gotta respect the word that you're saying. Yo, that's incredible, and she delivers, it well as well, like live on stage. So, yeah, Choo Choo. That's the one.
And my next key track, my fourth and final, is of course, It's Carnival. Well, Carnival is the actual title of the song, but we always call it It's Carnival because that's the hook of the song. It's Carnival, but it's actually Carnival. Featuring Destra's, her brother in music, the person who she compares herself most to, the one who she considers herself to be the female version of, Machel Montano. The king of soca himself. What I love about this record is that it feels bigger than Destra. It even feels bigger than Machel. Because now that Carnival has gone global in many places. Because, Trinidad and Tobago is the home of what we know to be Carnival culture. So we have Carnival here in Trinidad and Tobago. And then, of course, we have exported so much of Carnival as a product to other places. So over time, we had the Labor Day Parade in New York. You had Miami Carnival. You had Notting Hill. You had Carnival Caribana. Is it Caribana? Caribana in Toronto. But then, of course, you have other islands that now have their own versions of Carnival. Now you have Jamaica has their own version of a Trinidad Carnival. And then, of course, you go to the US and you have places like Atlanta and Hollywood and all these other places having carnivals now. But everywhere there's a carnival, soca has to go. Calypso has to find its own way there. Now, even though different spaces have their own ways of providing the soundtrack to their own carnival experience, soca has always been the driving force behind it because it's the energy that you need for the road. If you're going to have that kind of parade, that type of procession, soca has always managed to find its way to all of these different pockets in the world. And the interesting thing is that where there's carnival, there is this song. And this song has become like a global carnival anthem. It's big. Yeah. It's probably the biggest song in her catalog, if not one of definitely top 3, because it's huge. Not saying it's the best song, not saying it's my favorite song or even Elikya's favorite song, but it's big as far as you reach. And the weight that this type of song carries. It's a once in a lifetime hit. But what really stands out to me on this record, and as we actually talk about the music, one is this interesting relationship that Trinidadians and Trinidadian culture has with the world around it. Because this song actually takes the whole top line melody from Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time. But what they've done, and this is how, so many of us in Trinidad and Tobago interact with the world, and this is part of globalization. This is because of our connection to American culture through media. We could almost call it like an American imperialism. This way that America exports is the world's largest exporter of media product. So we are right on America's doorstep and we are heavily influenced by so much of American media. But what they've done is taken that American thing that song that was such a big hit on the US pop charts, and transformed it into something that's in a local space and created this song that feels organic. Like, I didn't even know that was from Time After Time for many, many years. It never occurred to me. I didn't even think of it. And it's funnily enough, I introduced this song to a good friend of mine, big up Quentin. I introduced this song to a good friend of mine, and he listened to it, and that's the first thing he heard. He said that's the first thing he noticed. That's Time After Time. But to me, growing up, I didn't make that connection. And I know Time After Time. But they bring it into a Trinidadian space. They make it feel organic. They make it feel true true, if there's ever such a thing, to soca music. But another thing that I love, and I want to say this, in the process of doing that, in the process of creating this monster hit, at no point on the song does Destra sound secondary to Machel Montano.
Yeah, I agree.
New artist.
I agree.
Machel at this point has been in the game for like 20 years. And because he started as a little child, went through Calypso into soca, experimented all kinds of things as a producer, as an artist, as a band leader, as an arranger, as an engineer. He is a giant at this point. Here comes Destra Garcia, and she is standing next to Machel, matching him note for note, movement for movement. It feels like brother and sister. It feels like two halves of the same coin. And she's at no point a hook girl to Machel. Like, when you listen to Machel work with Patrice Roberts later on in her career, like songs like Banner the Year, Like Yourself, for me, it feels like it took a very long time for Patrice to actually feel like she's really sharing space with Machel. It felt more like this is Machel featuring Patrice. Songs like Rollin', she's singing the hook. She's carrying the background. She's singing the hook. She might do part of the bridge, but it's Machel who's the driving force. On this track, Machel is not the driving force on this track. They are both. And the fact that a new artist is able to do that with Machel Montano says a lot about the level of talent that you're dealing with when it comes to Destra.
Yeah.
Elikya, what's your next key song, you?
Yeah, Carnival. Hold
on,
one of my friends.
I fixing my bam bam on the chair now. We still recording, by the way. I know she probably thinking I'm going to cut this out, but yeah, go ahead. Fix it with Boodie. I fix it with Boodie. I'll slip it off the side.
Ciao. Yes, Carnival. That's I would say my last key song for this album. It is the Carnival anthem for sure. I've even had a couple friends who I've introduced to soca, and one in particular who I didn't show her this song, not for any reason, I just didn't do it, and sent it back to me. She's like, I didn't know this was like basically the Carnival song around the world. And I was like, well, around most of the world, yes. Because I had to say, okay, Haiti Carnival is a different world there, but it is the song. It is bigger than Destra and Machel, and I think it had to be them two to do it. Like, it's on Destra's album, and not on the question of talent, but sometimes I'm like, okay, what if Destra did this song with like this next person instead, or that next person? There's a last little drop of something that would have been missing. It had to be Machel, because when he comes on with the energy, and his voice is kind of raspy, and her voice her voice is kind of raspy too, and sometimes the rasp comes out more than others. On this one, to me, it comes out quite clear, and then you have his rasp contrasting it. I mean, it was meant to be these two voices, these two energies, these two talents coming together for this song. And also, I love
Okay, you love.
Every time.
You love.
Sorry. Every time it gets to start to wind up now.
Start to wind up now.
And the way she delivers that, it's almost like she actually winds up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, vocally. And it's like when you're listening to it, you can tell it's a person, but it almost sounds like it could have some, technology kind of thing going on. But it's like, no, but that's really her. And even when you see her live, it's like that's really her. Oh my God.
That's one of those moments.
That's incredible.
That's one of those moments like, when you first...
She wows you.
She wows you. It's kind of like when you first hear like a great voice like a Whitney Houston, and you hear something who's a big influence on Destra, and then you hear a song like How Will I Know? And you hear that come through on the record.
Yeah.
That's what that is for me. When you hear, there's a boy. I can't do it right now, boy's gone. But you hear that, and you're like,
you're doing a lot of singing today.
But I ain't ready singing it because I know somebody going to cut these clips and say
Destra's music.
Trent can't sing, and he out there talking about people singing.
Destra's music is very melodic. Destra's music is it inspires you to sing. So.
But it's like that. When you hear Whitney Houston for the first time, or you hear Mariah for the first time, you hear these people doing things with their voices that make you really pull back and say, what did I just hear?
Yeah.
That's what you get from a Destra song.
And you know how you were talking about coming from a musical family? The way she moves through a song. It reminds me of someone on an instrument all the time. Especially if it's, I emphasize live a lot. When she's singing, when I'm watching videos of her singing a song that I know how the song goes, and I'm hearing the variations that she's doing on stage, it reminds me of like if you give a very common melody to like a guitarist, and the way they'll just, make it theirs, even though it's already hers because it's her song anyway. So, yeah.
Well, Elikya girl, we come to the end of this first episode together. It was nice. Yeah. It was real nice. Red, white, black.
Yeah.
We were in black. Both of we were in black. This is not planned, although we are not in a gang.
Not planned.
But anyway, I really enjoyed this journey. I hope everybody home watching this enjoy it too. But I really enjoyed this journey through Destra's first record. And we have a lot more. We have many more.
Yeah.
We have many albums to go through.
Many albums and many thoughts.
So thank you so much for everybody at home for watching this episode of Maco Soca here on Trinidad TV. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you tell a friend, because it's going to be a very wild ride. Buckle up, folks. Buckle up. Anyway, we'll catch y'all next time. Elikya girl, I gotta go and fix myself on the chair. My booty hurting, man. Everything hurting. Everything hurting. All right. We'll catch you all next time, right? Later.